Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking the deeply important concept of community governance in the Greater Kruger region and turning it from an abstract idea into a practical, everyday toolkit. Safety, wildlife protection, and local livelihoods, they're completely intertwined here, and we're going to demystify the rules communities can use right now to build safer, fairer landscapes. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. Safety across the landscape. 2. The 5 core guidelines. 3. Local rules for local realities. 4. Turning rules into reality. And finally, 5. Taking our rightful place.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Safety Across the Landscape.
It is definitely time to reframe how we think about security in these regions, because regional safety, it's so much bigger than just a police or conservation issue alone. It's really brilliantly illustrated when you think of it like strands in a rope. Our safety is woven together, inextricably linking people, wildlife, and livelihoods. Think about it. You literally cannot secure a protected wildlife area if the communities living right next door are struggling with extreme crime and poverty. And on the flip side, you can't secure a village if environmental crimes and poaching syndicates are running rampant and destabilizing the whole region. Everything relies on everything else to be strong.
And that brings us to a really vital concept: landscape-level security. This is the critical shift we absolutely need to make. We have to move communities away from just being bystanders, the folks who are only consulted after outside institutions have already made all the big decisions. No. Communities need to become active, organized partners. Landscape-level security means safety has to be a joint effort across the entire area, crossing those boundaries of villages, towns, farms, and protected zones.
Which leads us to Section 2, the 5 core guidelines. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how it builds the foundation for demanding fair partnerships.
We have this beautiful concept of a woven wheel containing 5 core guidelines. Think of these as the absolute master playbook for community governance: representation, accountability, grievances, support, and ethics. By following these, we make sure that every single interaction between communities and outside partners, like NGOs, government agencies, and security forces, is organized, transparent, and fair. Let's break these down one by one because they are real game changers.
Guideline number 1 is representation, specifically establishing what we call the first door. The golden rule here: outside partners simply cannot bypass the community to just cherry-pick a preferred contact. If an NGO or a police forum wants to engage, they must go through a recognized, trusted local structure as the agreed first door. This stops outsiders from dividing the community and ensures that women, youth, and all villages actually get a proper seat at the table.
Moving to Guideline 2, the feedback loop. This is pure accountability in action. Think of the Bato Pillay principles. People first, right? If a local representative goes to a meeting with outside partners, they can't just disappear into the ether. They must consult the community beforehand, and they absolutely must report back honestly within a week or two afterward. Representation without that constant accountability, well, that just easily turns into tokenism, or worse, a complete misuse of local power.
Guideline 3 focuses on creating safe channels for grievances. In areas where the fear of retaliation is high, people need a literal protective shield to speak up. Whether that means locked complaint boxes with very strict key control, specially trained focal persons, or secure digital lines. Trust breaks down entirely without this. Whistleblowers absolutely must be protected from local retaliation. There's just no way around it.
Guideline 4 is support, equipping the community. Look, we cannot expect unpaid volunteers to carry the heavy burden of local governance right out of their own pockets. Meaningful participation requires real, tangible support. We're talking airtime, transport to meetings, admin tools like minutebooks, and practical training. And crucially, this support has to reach women and young people, so we aren't just burning out the same 2 or 3 dedicated volunteers over and over again.
Finally, we have Guideline 5, the non-negotiables. So the crucial point here is that this is a strict code of ethics enforcing zero tolerance for bribery, corruption, or intimidation. And what's really powerful about this, these rules apply equally to everyone. That means local community structures, the SAPS, the National Defense Force, and well-funded NGOs, the whole shebang. If the rules are broken, there are agreed-upon consequences, right up to criminal action.
Moving right along to Section 3, Local Rules for Local Realities.
Now, it's great to have universal rules, but they have to fit our very specific Southern African realities.
In the Greater Kruger region, for instance, the northern cluster near the borders deals heavily with cross-border livestock theft and a very real fear of retaliation from syndicates. Meanwhile, the central cluster struggles more with poaching, severe gender-based violence, and just having too many disjointed responders. Down south, the main concerns are robbery, deep systemic poverty, and overburdened local safety structures. So the solutions have to fit the specific reality on the ground.
And because the realities are different, the first door will be different too. This playbook isn't some top-down, one-size-fits-all Western model. It explicitly calls out our vital, localized structures. In one village, your true entry point might be the traditional authorities and headmen. In another, it could be community policing forums, Sanko, neighborhood watches, youth and women's forums, or local farmers and irrigation groups. These existing, trusted structures are what make organized governance actually work here.
All right, Section 4, turning rules into reality. Let's get incredibly practical here.
It is time to cross the bridge from theory to daily action. On one side of the bridge, we have our agreed guidelines, beautifully written on paper. But let's be real, paper doesn't catch poachers, and paper certainly doesn't stop corruption. We have to walk across this bridge to reach joint action. That means moving from simply discussing our problems in workshops to executing concrete supported actions that create real landscape security.
To make that crossing, communities and partners designed an implementation roadmap. It features 5 highly recommended optional work packages designed to bring these guidelines to life on the ground. Let's walk through them.
First up, establish an HR backbone with real, dedicated staff so unpaid volunteers aren't overwhelmed by the workload. Second, form joint partnerships to set up regular, formal problem-solving platforms. Third, run cluster pilots. This is all about real-world testing and learning. Fourth, provide tools and training with simple starter packs like plain language constitutions. And fifth, set up grievance systems with highly functional whistleblower protection. These packages solve real operational problems.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, taking our rightful place.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to remember that these guidelines do not remove the responsibilities of the government, the police, or conservation authorities. They still have to do their jobs. Instead, these tools are here to help communities engage with power in a much more organized, confident, and effective way. They allow communities to stop being bystanders and truly take their rightful place as respected partners in building safer, fairer, and far more accountable landscapes.
So I want to leave you with a provocative question drawn right out of the playbook. Who is your first door? If an outside organization came to your community tomorrow, who exactly should they speak to? And more importantly, armed with these guidelines, how will you demand a fair partnership today? Get organized, use the playbook, ask the hard questions, and take your rightful place. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.